So the theme of our podcast is going to be resilience, resilience in life, and how gardens are kind of a microcosm of life, and how you observe gardens and take from that, and how you tell your clients how to show your clients how to be resilient within their business or within their life. And my garden has to be resilient because it's very much feast and famine. I might spend hours on this garden on a hyper focus, or I might forget about it for months on end. So it has to kind of cope. And so, it is designed, and I use it as a pattern book for my clients to say, I say to them, if it survives in my garden, it'll survive in yours. Because quite a few people come to me that aren't established gardens. They're quite scared of plants. They don't want maintenance. So I have to show them that actually you can have a low maintenance garden.
It is possible. There's that kind of dream, isn't there? But I want it to look beautiful and year-round colour and low maintenance. And you go, you can't have it all.
No.
But actually, you can come quite close.
Yes.
You can come quite close to that. We're looking at your mound, Charlotte.
Yes, so the mound is quite a good example of chaos. So there is a film, a wonderful Kate Winslet film called A Little Chaos, which I recommend if you're into gardening. And she's a gardener for Versailles in the 18th century. And she talks about how all gardens have to have a bit of chaos. You have to embrace the mess. There was a Buddhist culture where this Buddhist monk spent a whole day raking this garden, and then he got the boss monk, whatever they're called, to come and look, and he said it's not perfect, and he just threw a pebble just out of place. Now it's perfect, because nothing is perfect. So this mound is far from perfect. I've tried and failed with this mound so many times. This came about because I think it was your brainwave, I can't remember. We were digging out all the flower beds, and I didn't want to put all the turfs into skips.
Yeah, I think we were looking at how would you keep what you dug out on site.
Yeah.
And how could you reutilise that rather than the cost and expense at all sorts of levels of taking that off site.
Yes, and plus all the little microcosms that are within the soil. Plus this grass, and we'll talk about the grass in a second, is that horrible plastic mesh grass. I didn't want to send that to landfill. I wanted to contain it within this garden and hope that it biodegrades. It probably won't. And it has a double purpose as well. It makes a small garden feel bigger. You can plant on a bigger surface. This is not hugelkultur, but very similar to hugelkultur, where you would put a pile of stone and then wood and then the soil and then plant. It's a bit like medieval lynchets, where these medieval systems of mounding. So it would double the growth space. This is a north-east facing garden, but this side is south facing, so it gets all the sun. But I had a few areas here. I put plants in that I thought would survive, and they didn't, because I didn't realise that mounds dry out.
Well, much like raised beds, this is a problem that people have with raised beds in vegetable plots, for instance, but also a lot of smaller new built gardens. You'll often see a lawn and then some raised beds around the edge. They tend to be too narrow.
Yes.
They tend to not be terribly deep. So there's a lot of edge surface area to volume, and they dry out. They dry out really quickly.
And that's one of my biggest things. I come to a garden and they go, I want a low maintenance garden. I want gravel. I want pots. I want shrubs. Well, you've just mentioned and raised beds. You've mentioned four
high maintenance
of all of the highest maintenance things. So I have to spend quite a lot of time persuading clients that actually perennials, plants that die back in the winter and come back in the spring, are actually the lowest maintenance. So basically, you just shove them in the ground, and they grow, or they don't grow.
Or they don't.
And they don't. And things die. But that's life, and people get upset about plants dying. I do, because you feel like you failed as a mother. But then you think, well, you've just bought a bunch of flowers that she's immediately going to die. So
well, yes. There is that.
So how does that sort of correspond within life then?
Well, there's all of that stuff around. We're going back to this idea of creating the conditions conducive to life, about things finding their niche.
Yes.
About observing what works and what doesn't. So there will be things that grow better on the sunny side of your mound than those on the shadier backside. Yes. And so being just being conscious of that. Your backside's a bit shady, Charlotte. But you have a sunny mound at the front. So
one always likes a sunny mound.
It's all good. So there's something about observing this and closely observing what grows well, and how the same thing grows differently in different circumstances.
Yes.
So you can see that at a small scale on this mound in your garden. Equally, you could see that at a different scale if you went to a forest, or if I imagine. There are a few places where I drive through the countryside here where there have been, let's say, oak trees that have been planted in landscapes to be tremendous. And so there's no other trees around them. They're like in a field. And those oak trees will grow into that classic kind of wide, domed oak tree shape that we're really familiar with. But I also live near Savernake Forest where those oak trees are growing with a lot of other trees around them. Well, they can't do that spreading out thing. So then they grow really straight up.
Yeah.
So it's the same tree. It's the same tree, but in different circumstances. So I'm sure if we spent some time now, we could look at the same plant in your garden in different situations and see that in some places it flowers prolifically, in some places it's a bit kind of lower to the ground, in some places, again, we might see oak trees that are in really, really windy spots. Well, the shape will tell you which way the wind is blowing. So
you only have to look.
You only have to look. You only have to observe.
Well, this Russian sage, perovskia, or whatever the new Latin name for it is, I'm still going to call it perovskia. This is quite interesting. So, with human people, then you're talking about adapting, aren't you?
Yes, adapting to your circumstances.
Yes. So, interestingly, the perovskia at the top is going straight up as it normally does. Now, I thought it would also go straight up on the side of the mound, but actually, what it's done is it's grown sideways and then gone. I can't see the sun. Oh, I'm going to go up. It's gone in a really. I suppose what you would call it is etiolation, which is a word I use to impress. I like to impress my clients.
I like that word.
Etiolation. So interestingly, it wants to, because in their nature they just go straight up, and then as soon as they hit, they're like, oh, hang on a minute, that's not the way I go. But it's adapted. It's not adapted.
Exactly.
It's looking a bit leggy, but I'd like to look a bit leggy, to be honest.
But they are really so those growing on the side. So they start coming out. Like at right angles to the ground, and then it's like, well, hang on.
Yeah.
But that's not what's happening at the top.
No.
They're just going about their business.
And interestingly, these are much
way.
longer as a result because they're stretching for the sun. So have you noticed too with plants that they're going over a lot quicker? That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
With plants,
Because they're
as by nature
stressed.
Yeah, they're stressed, and plants want to make seed. And I often have clients say to me, "Why has this plant died? Yes, last week it was absolutely full of flowers," and I go, "That's why, because it knows it's dying, so it's putting out its last legs of energy to try and make new baby plants before it dies."
Exactly.
So sometimes a prolific flower is not actually a sign of a healthy plant.
No, it might not be. And I'm going to go back to trees again, actually, with another story. So we might be aware at the moment of of conker trees, so horse chestnuts, that at this time of year already look like it's autumn.
Yes.
And we'll see this all over the country. It's a leaf miner infestation that. So back in the day, when in my youth, some years ago, we used to go to an event in the beginning of June, and it was at an event where there were these big trees. And at the beginning of June, the first week of June, they would be in flower. So that was, let's say, 40 odd years ago. So now those flowers have already gone over by the beginning of June. Those trees are flowering a month earlier. You see them flowering in May. Yeah. And we look at them now. Where are we? The middle of July. You will see conkers on those trees already.
That's nuts.
But when I was a kid, the conkers were ripe when you went back to school in September, because you played conkers in the playground. So there's the tree's response to that leaf miner infestation, meaning that those leaves now can't photosynthesize, means they've accelerated that whole process of flowering, setting seed, making
they're
conkers,
going to be hit by the miner
because they can't photosynthesize after now. It looks like autumn has already hit those trees.
Because they need the chlorophyll, which makes the green, which makes the photosynthesis happening. That's fascinating.
And so that's kind of happened over a relatively short space of time in a sort of an evolution.
So that is a plant that's adapting.
Yes.
So it's not a good thing necessarily. We'd rather it not have to do that, but it is adapting.
It's responding.
And we've been reading in the news about trees in northwest London that have been dropping their branches, and that's another way that is adapting. Let's go over to this pear tree, for example. This is a tree that's under stress at the moment, and it is adapting by dropping its leaves. So and in northwest London they're dropping whole branches. Interestingly, as you pointed out when we were chatting earlier about these fruits are much smaller than they would be.
I mean, they're obviously not ready for harvest yet, but what I'm seeing a lot in fruit trees, apples and pears particularly, is more fruit.
Yeah.
Lots of they've pollinated really well
Yes.
this year, because we might also notice that there have been more insects around this year. That might be because we didn't have such a wet spring. So all of these things, everything around us is in a constant state of observation and adaptation. So we had good pollination. We didn't have early frosts, hence we've got a lot of fruit, but they're not very big yet.
Yeah.
And they're going to need a lot more water to get into a good size. But another year you might have fewer fruit but larger ones, you know, that are juicier and whatever.
It's really
because
interesting.
the circumstances are different.
And of course, as a gardener, this is what gardeners do: is they force trees to grow bigger single fruit by pruning and fanning them out. You mentioned water, so let's maybe talk about water.
All right. Okay. Okay.